Okay. 5 years as of the end of part 1. I logged in 2018 at the end of the first month of Global, or the second month of Global. When I joined, yeah. Prelude. So I logged in not long after the Global launch. I saw a Crunchyroll ad, and I logged in. I saw a Crunchyroll ad for this game, and I was like, oh yeah, I need a gacha game, because Tank used to always tell me, you need to play gacha and draw gacha. And I was like, yeah, I need a good old anime gacha game to draw fan art inspiration. Matrix Space is the first co-op event Captain has played aside from weekday event stages. Wow. Sakura Samsara. Yeah, Sakura Samsara had just launched when I started, I think. To change the tragedy, you cleared the second Samsara, but this time the demon in the box possessed Yai. But then after I came back to the game, I played the rest in the permanent open world mission. So during the actual event, I did get to the second ending. Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I never got to play. I never played the original version of Infinity Abyss. I remember the old intro, though. You guys remember the old intro that used to always play when you were downloading a new patch? Okay. Yeah. This part, I remember logging in when the summer outfits were on sale, and I was just thinking, oh, I'm not gonna get baited by the gacha. So, I remember when the dorm overhaul happened, and they got rid of the Shixel headquarters base building portion of it. And then I didn't touch Memorial Arena at all at that point. Reburn, yeah. So in version 2.6, they remade the first and second chapters of the story. Because I remember pre 2.6, the first two chapters of the story were super disjointed, right? Chapter 1 was like you landed on a spaceship, or you landed on an airship, and you had to take it over because the airship was infested with zombies. And at the end, you kind of saw a glimpse of the Hersher power inside of May. And then chapter 2 was kind of like you were back in the schoolhouse. And it was just this weird, like, all right, I'm just going to go chapter to chapter. It was kind of like still tutorial land. Did they rerun those skins? Nah, the year 1 summer outfits are just, they're never coming back. So, and then Shixel, so at this point, the game had already been up to, what, chapter 5, chapter 6 now? Oh, you can even watch the CGs. I love that they play the BG. Okay. So, Dear XC was added. Fairy Tale Rhapsody was one of the first events that, like, they still haven't rerun this event, right? Anniversary garden party. So this was global first anniversary. I wasn't playing back here. I didn't actually watch Final Lesson when it happened live. But I do remember at the midpoint of 2019, and we'll get to this here in a bit. Eye of the Deep, elves. The elf mechanic back then was like really janky. All right, so this would have been early mid 2019. A light version of which event? The only stuff that they added to Chronicles was like some of the, you can check in Chronicles, but Chronicles doesn't have this one. Chronicles doesn't have the Mad Hatter, the Alice in Wonderland. This is like basically a proto Captain verse. So Final Lesson happens. This is 2019 at this point. Raid. I remember logging in for a few instances of Team Raid, and this was kind of crazy, right? But I didn't do it with this boss. I think what I remember was one of the events had Tona as a raid boss. Okay, so 3.1. Oh, Honkai Kingdom's the first one. I didn't play for this either. But this is also like one of the early Captain verse, because they reference the early. They reference the first Honkai Kingdoms in the subsequent ones. Alright, Q Singularis. I remember this. I remember Q Singularis. They would alternate Q Singularis and DirectC eventually. You fought alongside Shadow Knight, Flame Sakitama, and Swallowtail Phantasm and reached floor 15 in Red Lotus Group. This was my early Abyss, right? So this is version 3.1 to 3.2. I actually logged back in 3.5. So it's cool that they still have the notes from here, from those early days. Okay, so at this point, I'm downstairs browsing Twitter, or maybe I was upstairs browsing Twitter. And this is what, version 3.3? Somewhere at this point, somehow on my Twitter feed, somebody posts the Cyber Angel CG, and they're like, I can't believe this is from a mobile game. I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that character. Isn't that the game that I played like a year ago? I should download and reinstall this game at some point. So that's when I decided, at the end of 2019, I had just finished Inktober, right? Herman Lee was on the UK tour with Dragon Force, and they brought Love Bites and McRocklin and Hutch as their support, and I remember it was a fever dream for me. End of 2019, October. My grandfather had just passed away that September, and so like all of October I was doing a lot of ink drawings, because that's how I was processing the grief. My grandfather was was huge on calligraphy, and you know, he taught Chinese. He studied like the different calligraphy, the Chinese calligraphy scripts. Because, you know, there's like the formal script, and then you have like the bone script, and then you have the grass script. So he was like, he would practice all of it. And I just remember, like, after I got done doing all the ink drawings, I was like, I need a break from the ink drawings. Oh yeah, there's that mobile game, Honkai Impact 3rd. Yeah. Yeah, so anyways, that's kind of how I got back into this. So here, 3.4 and 3.5, right? Pry arms. Stygian Nymph. I remember Stygian Nymph because this is when Hawk of the Fog was released, and everybody was like, "You should farm Hawk of the Fog."
另一个我，和我一起去救那个一直都在保护我们的姐姐。真是拿你没办法。去吧，希尔。
Oh yeah, especially combined with Mag Typhoon, right? It was like Mag Typhoon plus Hawk of the Fog. This defined the meta for like the next 8 months up until the Hersher of Thunder release. Oh yes. Okay, so 3.6 and 3.7. 3.6 was the launch of the PC client. I remember because it was the day after Christmas in 2019, right? It was the 26th of December. And I remember at the time I was playing on BlueStacks. I was like, man, my phone's running out of space. The PC version, playing on PC emulator is kind of rough, you know, sluggish. Yeah, and it was Captain Verse. It was good times.
毕竟，你就是昨天的我，而我，则是明天的你。我什么答案都还没有，也找不到可以对你说的东西。即便如此，如果一定要对昨天的我说些什么的话，明天，你也一定要继续厚颜无耻地活下去。相传。
Empyrean Legends. This was the first iteration of Chibi Shooter. And we actually did have an Empyrean Legends rerun recently, right? Was it last spring or was it? It was at some point we had a rerun of this. It was like Sanka Saga and Empyrean Legends got a rerun. Sanka Saga is actually one of the first events that they've rerun. So I remember this period quite a lot. I messed up on that first spending event in 3.7 because like the spending event opened, I did like 3 multi-pulls in standard equipment supply or dorm equipment supply. So I had no idea what I was doing. And then I remember I got Cosmic Duality, or it wasn't Cosmic, it was Nebulous Duality. I managed to pull Nebulous Duality, but I remember at the time the advice I had gotten was not to invest in AE. It was, you need HOR. So I was like, okay, I'll just roll for HOR. Yeah, no, it made sense at the time, because at the time the theory was like, you know, back then Hershers were OP, right? Get a Hersher and get a Blood Dance, and you're good to go. Right? And, you know, that was back in the time when Phoenix still did everything, right? The temps weren't crazy, right? I think Agony was, like, sub 200. Red Lotus was just barely 200. So... And you had Mag Typhoon, you know? So, like, Phoenix, Mag Typhoon, Hawk of the Fog, that could get you so far. Well, I was starting account, so I didn't have the infrastructure that would benefit from AE. But in version 3.7, Shadow Knight was farmable for a limited time with willpowers. So on both my NA, and this was around the time, like, I started my NA account, like, during Sakura, or Sanka Saga. My NA account, during 3.7, on both accounts, I farmed double SSK. Yeah, at the time, Toki was like, you need HOR and you need CH. AE is luxury, you can get her later. And yeah, I got AE on the main account in the fall of 2020, right? When I visited my parents in Florida. And we had those crazy gear pulls. Remember that one pull where I got my missing welt piece? It was like the missing welt piece, 2 Margrave pieces, and another copy of Cosmic Duality or something, or Nebulous Duality. All in one multi or something stupid like that. I'm sure it's in the clip somewhere. Was post Honkai introduced in 3.8? Man, I didn't even remember this. I just remember in 3.8, this was chapter 14. Right? This was chapter 14. No, chapter 15. I remember playing the crap out of the story missions for VG because she had that like EX challenge. I remembered playing the EX challenge for this, and I was like, I need to get that free lance because it's free. Oh yeah, AE. I remember. Okay, so Scissor will remember this, but Himitsu was still streaming at that time. Himitsu rolled for AE, and AE basically carried his account into Red Lotus back in early 2020, whereas I was struggling because I didn't have AE. I felt like I was rotating faster, but because I didn't have AE, I just didn't have the breach, you know? So that was quite a bit. 3.9 and 4.0. Honkai Kingdom 0. I remember this was a wild event. Wow, they even remember how many points I contributed. Moon Emberia was the Kiana faction, right? No. Was that the Rita faction? I think this was the Rita faction. The Day You Vanished with the Stars. Yeah, the first time Day You Vanished with the Stars aired, it was crazy.
这个故事无关乎拯救与被拯救，它的结局不断被修补着，又生出新的裂痕，而你，是那个重复尝试，便利痛苦的人。做不到的事，不会因为坚持而做到，也不会因为一句“我能做到”而发生奇迹。我知道。 其实你也知道，那一天，你向我伸出了手。从你抓住我的那一刻起
This was the first time I topped up seriously in this game.
你是我生命中
So 4.1.
最重要的人。如果拯救你是一种罪。 那么就由我来背负这个恶名。再见了，天。
It sounds that way, Faoran, not recommending AE back then, but back then there was definitely a more emphasis on DPS, right? Like. Back then, people were still reeling from HOV dominating every mode, even when she had type disadvantage. You know, HOR also had, like, anti-type disadvantage mechanics baked into her kit. The reasoning, I believe, at the time, even from a lot of the top players that I got advice from at the time, was like, you need to have DPS to be supported. Because back then, a lot of the supports didn't have all the crazy functionality that they do now, right? The whole idea was like, oh yeah, you could farm double S Phoenix and save your crystals to actually build out your roster for other things. And I was like, okay, double S Phoenix, let's go. All right, so yeah, this was August of 2020. I remember I topped up quite a bit leading into the patch. And then for the patch itself, we had a few gift donos. I remember DJ Mist also donoed for this one too. I think DJ Mist donoed. I can't remember. Scissor, did you also dono? That's a probably. Probably. Truthfully, I often think of that time as full of regret, yet it also allowed Kiana and I to see our mission and the world. Parting us for a better reunion. Yeah, so I remember at the time, and MG has mentioned this a few times in our previous podcast episodes, but it was like, it was a very bittersweet CG and the way the story played out. And MG still always has beef with the way they executed the story, right? Like he'll always pick at the plot holes, and for me it was just kind of like, yeah, I understand why it had to happen. I just don't like the way that it played out. And it really did feel like during the Hersher of Domination arc, they were trying to like soft retcon and like apologize for the rough way that they handled it. Okay, so this was when Super String launched. You fought alongside Darkbolt Jonin, Azure Imperia, and Lightning Empress, and reached Nirvana Group with 21,545 points. This was my first Nirvana retention, by the way. This was Husk Nihilus at the end of 2020. We have that footage uploaded on YouTube. This was crazy because I was in Mafuyu's bracket, but it was also one of the few times where I felt like I had everything I needed to compete against all the, like, you know, more established players in the same bracket, and I managed to sneak by in 5th place. Rising and falling were two sides of the same coin, be it luck or power, you've reached the pinnacle. Yeah, so, like, this was, I remember at the time I was thinking, like, I had 2 goals left in the game. One was, you know, get to Myriad / retain Nirvana, and then the other was get to 2% or top 100 in MA. In Exalted. And I think this got me Myriad and retention. Yeah, this was Myriad and retention at the time. And I think by the end of 2020, I also did hit 2%, but I didn't get my first top 100 until spring of 2021, I think. I remember the first 2 or 3 cycles, though, they ran that really annoying Bloodbane stage where you had to farm Evadion, and that sent me back to Agony at least twice. At least twice I got sent back to Agony 3 because of the Bloodbane stage. And that was before Danzai. That was before Danzai release. So Danzai, so we went 4.2 is FR, no. Hang on. Okay, so 4.2 was FR, 4.3 was Danzai and Delta. Danzai was your poor players BKE, right? If you didn't have BKE and you needed a mech physical, you kind of had to run Danzai. And Danzai was my AoE mech physical that helped me through Bloodbane. I have the old runs too where I was like, for Red Lotus, you could play Paralyzed build using a Mag Typhoon on your Danzai Spectromancer and get past these hard-to-beat zombies. These zombies with thick shields in the pre-Carol era. You don't have Carol, you don't have infinite shield break? Well, let me tell you what. Celestial Hymn, Starlit Astrologos, and Danzai Spectromancer. That's the way we cleared it back then. At least that's the way I cleared it back then as far as, like, mad scientist strats go. And then they added Delta. Delta in 4.3 was such an OP, augment character. Now, 4.2 was the first time I actually skipped a patch entirely on the NA account. I just wanted a break, right? But I kind of regret it at sometimes, because not playing 4.2 meant that for 4.3 spending event, I couldn't get anything on the NA account. The main account definitely, you know, that's when we picked up all the AE. We picked up a lot of goodies. It was actually a really nice, like, you know, catch-up patch, because Delta was basically free. All you needed was her weapon. Dickens was a undertuned set, so everybody was like, you don't need it. I think I did get one piece of Dickens, and I was like, I'll just hang on to it as a placeholder. And then we didn't really need to roll for Danzai's weapon because Danzai as a battlesuit was kind of undertuned for Memorial Arena. So Danzai was originally designed as a support for Bright Knight, but she had no time fracture, so it was not really useful to use her as a support for Danzai in Memorial Arena. Yeah, and then it was one of those things like eventually just got one of her weapons from Off-Rate's event anyways. So, alright, whatever. And then Dea Encore. I remember when Dea Encore was announced. So at this point, at the end of 4.3, we kind of got wind that there was going to be an Evangelion collab happening. And they kind of don't really mention it here, right? So Dea Encore is 4.4. Honkai Quest was really fun. Honkai Quest actually tied together quite a few of the threads of Captainverse. So like we kind of found out through Honkai Quest that Delta was a Captainverse agent, right? And then Sele was looking for Bronya, but the Bronya that she found wasn't the same Bronya, or something like that. Or it was like a Bronya that got corrupted by the power of the Honkai at the end. But it was funny because like along the way, that's when we started running into Water Spirit HOV, the Water Spirit Water Fairy HOV. We ran into the twins at some point in Honkai Quest. And there was like some dimensional jumping that resulted in the Water Spirit HOV ending up in the next year's summer event storyline. And we'll probably get to that here in a second. Let me take a restroom break and we'll keep going on with this reminiscing. There was something about 4.3 I just remembered too. So at this point, I remember being just a little bit salty about a few things that happened around that time. So myself, Defi, and Himitsu, we had been streaming quite a bit throughout 2020. But Defi had already found his way into the content creation program. And I remember Defi got mailed a box, like a thank you box from Honkai community, from the community team. And I was like, bro, I've been out here grinding. How? Notice me, senpai, you know? And then it was really funny because that year, during Inktober, I posted a bunch of Honkai ink drawings, and Tofu actually found me that way on social media. But then it was cool, but it was also kind of awkward, right? Because like I wanted to be known for Honkai streaming, not my Honkai fan art. Even though now it's kind of like I want to get back to doing Honkai fan art. Oh, let me set a marker here. I remember around this time, Genshin Impact was prepping for launch, or had just launched, and Niv Ultra got invited to do the preview stream for 4.3. Was it because he was getting the really good numbers from Genshin at the time? I just remember that during that program, he demoed the HOR Triarm against MA Callan. And it was very disappointing because a lot of people in the chat and also like some of the other people I talked to afterwards were like, they were pretty upset that he demoed that in that situation. And I just remember thinking like, man, I wish Niv had reached out to me to get some consultation or something. And then the subsequent versions, it was Seraphim for a bit. Yeah, so Niv had played and streamed Honkai prior to that point, but he did so from a story-only standpoint, right? For him, Honkai was his waiting room for Genshin. And I get it. Like, he wanted to explore more of what hoyoverse had to offer. Well, back then they hadn't rebranded the global side, so it was just mihoyo. You know, he basically treated Honkai as his Genshin waiting room, which was fine, right? That's just part of the hustle. But it also definitely kind of backfired in that one presentation. So after 4.3, you know, Seraphim basically did all the previews up until 4.7, which we'll get into. So they kind of gloss over this, but 4.5 was the Evangelion collab. And I remember one of the other interviews from the end of that year or something like that. They were like, yeah, the Evangelion collab didn't go as well as we thought. Well, I wonder why. They put the Evangelion collab right between two highly sought after S ranks. I remember being super salty about Dea Ancora because it was right before Evangelion. And we had found out about Evangelion collab upcoming since, you know, the end of 4.3. So we were salty about Dea Ancora being a whole new level of power creep for fire DPS. They had purposely nerfed the On-Utu Priarm in preparation of the release of Dea Ancora. I think we also got the Searcher Priarm in that same time frame, right, Scissor? But it was like extra niche, so it was like, should you build it? Only if you're whale. That type of thing. And I remember we were like, all right, well, what is the free-to-play alternative to Dea Ancora right now? Well, we gotta play Flame Sakitama. We gotta play Flame Sakitama. Oh yeah, Homes also released in 4.5. How many of y'all got Homes from off rates in the time period since then and you salvaged the copy? Oof. Okay, 4.6, this was a good time. You met at 23, was it really that late when I did my pulls? Or was it only this time in EU hours? So EU server time, right? EU server time was probably 23:32, but like I think NA was probably just in the afternoon. Senti was willful and wild back then, struggling with the problem of whom the real Fuhua was, and ultimately caused many troubles. It's only thanks to Kiana and Bronya that she... No time, why are you taking up my history in front of everyone?
过去的种种，结果只有失败。想要守护的人，也尽皆消散。唯有刻骨铭心的悔恨，才能催生
Yeah, I feel like previously we always had...
现在就亲手把这个世界变成我想要的样子吧。我将
Yeah, weren't we supposed to get Spring Lobby this year too? I think we were supposed to, and then maybe they just delayed it or something. Oh, what if they delay it for the TW anniversary? That's also a possibility. Lobby is on the 25th. Okay. So we are getting it. It's just delayed. Yeah, so after Sentience, I'd say around this time, after Sentience is when I started getting top 100. So like this was, you know, we always talk about don't backwards invest, just invest forward. This was finally the part where like investing on kind of the current stuff, you know, I was able to start catching up on meta. HOS was great, right? Because she provided an alternative on Rhymestar, made a lot of the previously annoying physical fights now doable. And also, we could run 2 physical teams, so they started spamming us with double physical weeks. Ugh. What else happened around that time in 4.6? So at the end of 4.6 is when Seraphim recommended me to the Honkai staff. And this is actually right around the time when Ranran got hired at mihoyo. So Ranran on the community team also started around that time. where the special program that we did for 4.7, it was her first and it was also my first. Like Tofu was like kind of side transitioning the jobs or the roles that she was in charge of, because I think Tofu was previously kind of in charge of the special program. But now she's kind of like overseeing some other part of the community programs or whatever. Weren't we molding Asuka on versus Rhymestar or something? Later on we were, because it was enabled by the cross, right? No, I think actually Sentience also enabled some. I think maybe we tried a few times with Ranger's Cross. I honestly don't remember too much back then. I know later on we did find some strats that were like 680 to 786 or even 840 with Asuka. So 4.7, this was also right around the time of the Global 3rd Anniversary incident. And I remember they told me, like, don't mention the incident during the 4.7 stream. They were worried that we were gonna get raided by, like, Chinese players that were hate posting or astroturfing. I remember we did catch like a few messages in Chinese that were like aggressive, but like the chat was moving so fast, so like nobody saw it. And then we had, you know, Honkai Cross Genshin. And then yeah, I remember they basically teased the whole Inazuma storyline. The whole Kaching and Sakura storyline was like a teaser of the Raiden storyline in Inazuma. You who have passed the triple test are an exemplary adventurer acknowledged by Paimon. Outworld quest emblem attests to your journey.
奥托先生，请您注意时间，片头就要放完了。
啊，总之，因为某些复杂深刻但对观众而言并不重要的背景设定。
Yeah, they review bombed Honkai on like Google Play and on Bilibili.
大诗篇即将由此拉开序幕。
Yeah, where you had to help the Sakura get back to the palace, and then at the end, like you find out that there was like the robot puppet version of Sakura, but actually that wasn't the real Sakura. Yeah. Yeah, the bunny girl incident. So yeah, Haxor Bunny, Turgenev, and then Official with Zenyi. Probably two of the most cracked out support sets at that time period. I remember also, I was also doing 4.8. So Seraphim at this point and we were doing like 2 on, 2 off, alternating. And Haxor Bunny, so I got to do Haxor Bunny and Nyx. Seraphim did Official and Flame Scion. And this was really cool because, so this was actually, I think Flame Scion was one of the first times I actually got CN beta access. And I remember version 1 of Flame Scion was way different from what eventually ended up. Like, you can find my test footage on YouTube. Yeah, they kind of glossed over some of these patches. I remember really enjoying the Hersher of Domination storyline lead up. It was very good as far as linear stage storytelling went. And I also really did enjoy the Sentience arc too. I thought that was also like really nice. All the daily stages for all those chapters felt nice to play during their release event. You know, standard event shop type of thing. Oh yeah, Arc City should have. they kind of glossed over Arc City too. Arc City also was really amazing. I'm so glad I recorded both the original run and the rerun. But I remember loving the crap out of Arc City. I remember also during the day of my special stream, I watched MG's special stream, and there were bits and pieces of the open world that MG like showed off that I didn't even know about, and I was like, this is awesome. So Flame Scion, I remember, you guys remember the polls for this, right? That's also documented on YouTube. NA and EU polls. First pull of the multi. And after we got our extra 5 tickets, I pulled those on EU. And I got another copy. And that's how I got S1 Flame Scion. Absolutely absurd. Miss Himiko. Yeah, I remember leading up to this, we were all expecting Himiko to come back with the Hersher core. You remember this, Scissor? We were all like, oh yeah, Hersher of Flame, it's gonna be awesome. Kiana's gonna save her. Yeah, and then Despair, as CN story spoilers killed it for us. That's true. This is also the time when, like, a lot of the story spoiling started really ramping up. And it was like, it was getting really bad on Twitter. Like, yeah, you guys remember back in 2020, if I go back here, right? 2020, Hersher of Thunder's model got leaked, like, at around 3.8 or 3.9, which is way ahead of what normally is, like, okay, we get the pre-release from the beta test or whatever. And so, like, the devs were really upset because they were like, we were gonna explain that, you know, they wanted to originally explain that the sub-arms that Hersher of Thunder had were actually from Kurikara. Because when she reformats Benares, she converts the Honkai beast from a dragon into a wyvern. And so, like, as a wyvern, you don't actually have 4 arms, right? It's like you don't have your front legs. You only have your wings, and the wings are your legs. The front legs of that dragon became her sub-arms. So, like, during the flying missions, like, as you're flying on Kurikara, shooting and everything, like, the arms are still swinging, disconnected from the body. So, man, 5.0. This has already been 2 years since this. Were we in pandemic during this point? I think we were. A lot of us were staying at home and playing video games instead.
但也有人让我不要放弃，他们指引着我，向我证明这世界没那么糟。
Okay, so this part was kind of weird, right? I remember Flame Scion being such a huge bookend. It was such a huge bookend, and I felt like after that, I wasn't really looking forward to Elysian Realm. I wasn't really looking forward to Elysian Realm. I was kind of like okay with it, but I wasn't on board with Elysia being introduced at the time. I was like, who's this hussy? Who's this hussy trying to hog all the glory of Honkai? I want the story to be about Mei, Kiana, and Bronya. Yeah, see, look, in sequence reel, you teamed up with Infinite Ouroboros and cleared the challenge on 140. Did I do a 150D clear at the time? Not on the first patch. Sequence reel, all right? What's now known as deep sequence. Thus spoke Apocalypse. I did enjoy the Colostan arc. It was kind of crazy though, but yeah. I did enjoy it. Yeah. All Elysia wants is to grab the bull by the horns. Shut up, Mokizian, but you're not wrong. I do remember that 5.2 was a great patch, and 5.3 was around the time APHO2 happened, right? 5.3 and 5.4. The prelude to APHO2 and then APHO2. So Carol and Silverwing. What else happened back then? Man. Yeah, I remember I did the special program for Elysia and Mobius. Actually, I think Unreal might have done one of these. Oh no, did Unreal do 5.3 instead of 5.2? I remember one of the ones we let Unreal do, and then like the next one that he was supposed to do, he backed out at the last minute and they asked me to do it. So it might have been 5.3 and 5.4 that Unreal was supposed to do, and then like with all the rehearsals required, like I think on the second one he just he decided it wasn't worth his time. And I get it. It's business decision at that point. He had already gotten one in, and it was, you know, basically ticked off the box. So for me, I remember 5.4 was really neat because that was when we had Finana as a pre-stream guest streamer. So Finana Ryugu, Finance Ryugu of Nijisanji EN fame, she was our pre-stream guest streamer, and basically she went through the whole script of like what was actually supposed to be the special stream, and I was just thinking like by the end of it, I was like, man, this was so good, I actually don't even need to be here. You know? So yeah, that was pretty fun. I do remember I only rolled for S0 Silverwing, and I wasn't happy that Silverwing was releasing right before 5.5 spending event. And oh, this was also around the time that for a lot of the special streams, they kept wanting us to do like speed run stuff. Like, oh, the what was that one mode, the Stargates? They kept wanting us to do like Stargate speed runs. So like I would often invite Ziazis. There was like a Stargate speed run, there was a Elysian Realm speed run and whatnot. So like I would always invite Ziazis to help me be my racer. And yeah, 5.5. I remember 5.5. Oh. Was it 5.5? 5.5 was the one that I planned along with MG, and there was like, we had a lot of trouble planning the 5.5 one because I think there was a lot of stuff that the staff was ambitious in wanting to do, because we had like 8 different language streams that we had to synchronize for the racers, because it was Akayuki and one of the EU guys who's a mod for Seraphim, who did the APHO2 speedrun. And I remember we had to synchronize everything for a specific time zone for the broadcast. But that was also a huge, you know, anniversary or spending. Yeah, it was a huge patch preview. So we synchronized the SEA and the global programs together. It was a really big production. But I remember like MG and I remember Don did it for the RU language. I remember we had a Portuguese stream as well. But I remember MG and I, like, we had to figure out, like, all right, what's the best way for us to actually produce the race? And, like, back and forth with Akayuki, like, oh, you guys need to stream to a private stream on YouTube so then we can just watch the stream from YouTube. Basically the way I worked it out is I would just have 2 YouTube windows open, and I would have an overlay hiding it. Because there was no way to do like an NDI direct feed or anything. Like, it would take way too much effort to like teach people how to set that up on their ends. And doing it from a Discord feed, like, we would risk Discord compression and, like, you know, what if the call drops, right? So in the end, we got it to work out. I don't remember if I saved the VOD for that one. I hope I did. I honestly don't remember. I hope I saved it, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I forgot to. If I forgot to, then that's tragic. But that was I don't know. I'll look for it on YouTube maybe, and if I didn't, then rip. But yeah, I remember doing the rehearsal while I was at my parents' place in Florida that year too. Because I remember staying up extra at the... So this would have been the early 2022. That's when I started growing my hair out. The last haircut I got was when I was at my parents' place at the beginning of 2022. So then... 5.5 drops, and also a huge patch. I remember I was able to fully gear everything that I wanted, and we rolled for 4-star climb, but I was over on fragments again somehow because I miscalculated what I needed from the fragment shop or something. Or I bought my elf fragments before I pulled, so like at the end, like when I was only 3 fragments away from the card, I got or 3 fragments away from 4-star, I got another card. Right, as usual. But on main, I was able to get double Espina because she had like 6 fragments or 6 stamps in the Elysian Realm, so all you needed was 4 from the spending event. That was also the time I think we were... What was it? Was Bright Knight available in the spending shop at that point? And then, like, the following spending event, we were like, oh yeah, maybe they'll put DA on the spending event, but instead they ran Bright Knight again. So, what else happened? I got S0 Equinox, double S Spina over time, and then Klein 4 stars. Or, not Klein. Blade Durandal 2 stars? Hang on, Magpie. I'm not gonna be doing anything right now. I don't know if Magpie's lurking in the chat. I guess it's daily reset now, right? On EU. Did I roll for Blade Durandal 3-star? No, I think I only got 2-star Blade Durandal at the time. Yeah, I think I only got 2-star Blade Durandal at the time, because I was like, oh yeah, this is all I need. Or maybe, no, maybe I did get 3-star. It's all getting fuzzy. I think I got 3-star Blade Durandal. I think after that, it was like I only get 3-star Elf, and then I try to 4-star them after the fact from a future spending event shop type of thing. Anyways, and then on the NA account, I was able to get, you know, 4 of 4 for both Spina and Equinox. And then I was also able to finish the Mobius gear, which was actually crazy. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I thought I was going to just play Scuff Mobius for a long time on the NA account. Oh yeah, what was 5.4? Oh, so they go from 5.4 here. So yeah, APH02, we kind of go over this a little bit. And then, yeah, so this is when they start tracking, like when you get, okay, yeah, so Equinox.
没想到时隔多年，我会又一次站在战场之上。这8年间，崩坏的威胁远不及当年那般可怕。我也有了新的身份，但在有需要的时候加入战斗， 仍然是我的使命。只要这个世界陷入了危机之中，我都会重新回到战场，直到这场灾难彻底终结。以上，对崩坏小队第2代旅队长 Bronya Zaitchik 报告完毕。
Yeah. So we kind of talked about this a bit. 5.6, we got Pardophilus. They didn't list here, right? So here, Pardophilus. Oh man, it was a complicated time. So 5.6 was the last special stream that we did, I think, because in 5 was it 5.6 or 5.7? 5.7 was the last special stream, and at that point I was kind of burned out, and Ziazis was the streamer for 5.7, and that was the last of the special streams, because after that they launched the official Twitch channel, in which case they no longer did the special streams, they just rebroadcast, or they simulcast the Hyperion Lounge. So prior to that, so 5.7 and before, what would happen was the Friday before the special program, we would get Hyperion Lounge, and then the Saturday is when we would do the special program. And it would be like 200 crystals from the Hyperion Lounge, 120 crystals from the special program that had a 24-hour expiration. And the Hyperion Lounge is 24-hour expiration too. And then you had the survey, end of patch survey. So like at the end of a patch, you were looking at 500 crystals for free-to-play players. That's like a whole Abyss cycle, you know? Yeah, so Pardo was an insane release. I remember during beta test, Ran was like, don't you think she's a little too simple? I was like, oh yeah, simple is good. Turns out she was not that simple. She enabled so much crazy stuff. And, you know, I didn't really have the foresight to experiment and figure all that stuff out at the time. But that was also kind of like when I started doing a lot of, like, extra beta testing that also contributed to my various burnout. I wish you could zoom in on this. You got both the Illusional Palace emblem and the Summer of Side 13. Yeah, so they had 2 back-to-back summer events. So it was the DICE event, and then... what was the one after the DICE event? Also 13 Flame Chasers related. I forgot. I forgore. Oh, it was the Griseo one, right? No, the Griseo one was later. Pokemon Rerun. Pokemon Rerun was after. There was 2 back-to-back events that told the story of the Flame Chasers on the island. Plants vs. Zombies. Yeah, so it went DICE and then Plants vs. Zombies. I liked both of them, but I felt like the DICE one was kind of hard to get into at first. The Aponia patch. So 5.7 was a double release, Eden and Aponia. This was actually when Jennings quit. I don't know if you guys remember, but he came in the chat and he was like, I quit. I tried to go for... did he go for triple S or double S? I think he went for double S and only ended up at S2, or he tried to go for triple S and only ended at like double S2 or something like that. But I remember he felt like she was way undertuned, way underpowered, didn't live up to expectations, and I don't know if it's because like he also skipped out on Eden. So a lot of Aponia's power was balanced around having a fully geared triple S Eden. I think the triple S, and he got stuck at double S2. Yeah, I think that's always the risk if you're a high spender, is like if you're not really prepared for the worst case scenario of going for triple S, I don't think you're ready to go for triple S, right? Like if you look at how much that Zetsu and Ziazis and Akayuki and even Kronos at some point, right? Because I think Kronos has at least 1 or 2 triple S's. If you're not prepared to like basically top up until you get the character, like you're not that prepared for triple S. Now, if you are willing to triple S over a period of time, that's okay, right? Like that's here and there, or you wait for the ADV. But yeah, I remember at that point, that was kind of like the stopping. And, you know, like at that point, we had roasted Jennings here and there for like the way that he chose to play, which was very much collector, but he was also trying to back he was also trying to go backwards to collect old gear and old stuff just to have a complete collection while still being like relatively mid-meta as far as like comfort clearing between Agony and Red Lotus. And he was basically riding out, you know, letting his battle suits and top up carry him through Red Lotus, which is fine. Perfectly fine. But I think, you know, that the incongruity of having a certain expectation for the character and then that character not living up to it was what kind of ruined the game for him. And then the Griseo patch, and then the Vilv patch. I still feel like the whole situation here, right? 5.9 and 6.0 was probably some of the worst version planning that they could have done as far as Battlesuit release goes. Because they were trying to line it up with the storytelling. But if even if they were trying to line up the storytelling, they should have just made Vilv the farmable Battlesuit of the year. That, or, you know, release Sushang one version early and then push Elysia like one patch back. Or one of the earlier patches here, like, they could have maybe compressed one of the APHO patches and then, you know, what was it? It was actually 5.6, right? 5.6, they released Elysian Realm Chapter 3 instead of Chapter 29. So it ended up like 29, or not, yeah, 29, 30, and 31. Like, I just remember that was a slog. That story arc was such a slog to get through. Like, the payoff was good, though. The payoff was really good. But money, I know, right, Farron? I know. And this was back when Era was like trying super hard. You know, Era got Triple S Elysia. Yeah, the Cosma fight. Yeah, I think there was a lot of factors that I definitely felt the burnout of Honkai Impact 3rd during this arc. And we're gonna take an ad break here. I think at this time too, I was seeing a lot of Honkai fan art on Twitter, and it was just this sense of, man, there's all these other Honkai players that, you know, seemingly way more passionate about this than I am, and all I can think about is like, I just want to grind MA and Abyss. Yeah, my gear pulls went pretty bad. Well, we're still on break. Okay, so yeah, this was around the time I remember Era got Triple S. I went 143 pulls for her gear, for Elysia's gear, and then I rage pulled till I got to double S. Do I regret it? A little bit. I do regret it a little bit. I think about, like, what if I had just gotten Vilv instead, right? If I had just gotten Vilv instead, I'd probably been happier. If I just pulled for Vilv and then topped up a little bit more for her Elysia, maybe. But there are times when I do have to play Herrscher Elysia. I'm like, man, having double S is just super comfy. That might just be a thing, Farron. Every time I do a fusion, I just go for 105 so I have leftover fragments for collection's sake. Anyways, we're not talking about that. Although, as a side note, 2022 was also the year that I had a lot of RSL sponsored streams. And that was nice, you know, during 2022, all the non-Honkai games I got to play, right? Like RSL, Forbidden West, Horizon Forbidden West, and all that. But yeah, at this point,
贯彻始终，以生命奏响了文明的颂歌。这是被称作英杰的人们的故事。
Yeah, this song was really good.
是13位烛火者未尽的旅途，但来访者，你们的道路仍将延续，不是吗？那就天平心意前进吧。
I think this was the point where, like, I was really glad that this whole arc was over, right? Like, it took a whole year from the end of 5.0 all the way to 6.0, like a whole year. I was just kind of glad that this was done and we could come back to real time and real space. So, come into 6.1, 6.2, and then 6.3, and then 6.4, version Kiana. I remember really enjoying chapter 32, but 33 somehow felt like a slog. Now, Honkai Salvation Log was really fun. And I thought it was really cool at the end of chapter 35 where you got to see the message that you wrote. I think Sushang's release, I was okay with it, I guess, but at the same time I also felt like, man, I really wish that they just planned out the release schedule a bit better. Because now I pretty much, on the main account, I have to wait till Vilvi's Battle Pass rerun, and at that point, like, it's not gonna make sense to even, I might not be able to get her gear, right? I don't know. I feel like, on the one hand, if the circumstances were different, I probably would have said, oh, I'd like to just actually just roll on a Vilvi rerun at the first chance, and then just, you know, try to get her to double S in the future. But at the same time, I don't know if I have that same emotional attachment at this point. Okay, 6.3, right, the whole Silverwing banner for HTR. It was exactly as I predicted. Soon as they posted the whole story arc trailer during the 6.1 dev stream. You guys remember I was on call on the podcast call? Well, it wasn't really a podcast, right? MG was doing a live translation with Zkadla, and I was just kind of watch partying on the side. And then Alicia joined us on the call that time. But I remember I called it, what if it was HTR with a Silverwing style banner, and then we get double release Kiana and Mei. MG even made a bet. He was like, if this happens, I will give you 10 subs. And he did. He did after we found out. And this kind of catches up to the present.
崩坏3第1部的故事到这里就进入尾声了。我们的未来还会延续，也终有重新交错的一天。但现在也是时候准备出发，去迎接下一个崭新的篇章了。不过，无论如何，当舰长回首过去的时候，我们一直都在这里，而未来也将由大家。
Damn, I keep wanting to say it. I keep getting cut off by Kiana. So what I was trying to say is, like, I think this is very poignant, right? For a lot of players, like, this is the end of Honkai that we cared about, that we grew up with, that, you know, we went through our different phases of life, one period of life transitioning to another. For me, I think I'll probably still play Honkai for a little bit more. I don't know what part of the game I'll try to focus on. It's been a really good run these last 3 years, you know? Longer for players like Scissor, longer for players like Nefer, but I feel like it's been good. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mokizian. Part 1 Memoir. Yeah. That's a lot of memories here. Maybe I'll actually do like a fancy thumbnail for this clip when I cut it for YouTube this week.